Welcome back to another edition of Smart Driving Cars. Thank you for spending time with us once again. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University and co-author of the still new book, The Real Case for Driverless Mobility, Alain Kornhauser. Hi, Alain.
Hey, good morning, Fred. Good morning. Yes, it's still a new book. Nobody's done it yet. So, you know, still a new book.
Well, on top in the latest Smart Driving Cars, Alan, you've got a link to a video of Elon Musk's remarks at this week's Tesla shareholder meeting. There was a lot there, including his vision for a robotaxi business. And the way he described it, it would be operated by Tesla to some extent, but open for vehicle owners to participate. And we've talked about this before, whether or not people would want to, but it sounds like they don't have to, obviously.
Yes, they don't have to, but I think, well, to me, there was a little different twist to it. In other words, it's Tesla as the operator of this of the robotaxi operation, and then and then the owner of a vehicle allowing his or her vehicle to opt in to being used by the system. And I don't know, maybe I didn't pick up what he meant, that vision of it, than the vision I had before. So I think that's an important one that's in there.
The way he's describing this is that you'd almost have your vehicle for free if you wanted to participate, that you could make
Well,
enough.
I mean,
Yeah.
it depends as to how much he or the entity that is using one's vehicle is willing to pay when. And so depending on the amount that the entity might want that vehicle and the amount that the entity might want to pay for that vehicle, then you know I guess one might be able to see that vehicles are free, maybe.
What were your thoughts about the way he described their progress in getting to real full self-driving, if we're going to use that phrase
Well,
again?
yeah, right. And look, I mean, let's get away from the phrase. The idea has to be that it has to be driverless, okay? And there can't be a person in there, or I mean, if you can get people to work for free, then you can have a person in there. Or maybe he envisions that Optimus is going to be so good that the Optimus can be the person that's in there overseeing the operation. I mean, that's seems to me if Optimus is smart enough to be able to avoid a crash, then he can put that intelligence in the vehicle, and you don't need Optimus. So, Optimus I, and since it would probably be the same code development here, what you have is your redundancy is exactly what you had in the first place. Therefore, it's not a redundancy, right?
Well, I
um,
suppose for passengers needing assistance, an Optimus could be the could be an answer here.
well, yeah, I guess Optimus could hold one's hand, and Optimus could grab my bag and stick it in the trunk, and therefore you could do an Uber service with Optimus, I guess. Sure. Yeah. I thank you, Fred. I didn't think of that. Go for it. Go for it, Elon. I mean, um, whatever.
Your overall thoughts of the way he described the company today, because there was so much there. It's not only the Optimus robot, the Tesla business, there's the Powerwall, there's and the Megapacks, uh, helping to solve utility problems.
And the AI
And
company,
the AI, that's that may
whatever
be
wherever
biggest of
that fits in.
that may be biggest of all because he described the vehicles being able to take part in that, likening it
Well,
to Amazon
I don't
Web
know. I mean,
Services.
everybody knows that I'm a fanboy, so I guess what how can add anything to that? I just think I think it's a really good vision. Now, whether or not it's going to happen or whether or not pump it so much, I don't think he's going to pump and dump it. I mean, he, what would he dump it for? You know, he already has. How much do you need? I mean, he doesn't have to sell.
Well, he was describing the
He
next
has.
generations of hardware coming along as well, and the capabilities. I'm talking about the Tesla vehicles, the hardware 4 and then hardware 5 the following year, et cetera.
Yeah, and hardware 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, I guess one of the things he said in there is that he's going to maybe stop with the version numbers of FSD at 12 and do 12.122 sometime. He didn't say that, but that's what I implied from that. Doesn't matter. It does matter what you call it, I guess. But it really doesn't matter. The idea is that this is a path. This is an improving path. And as he says in there, as everybody would say, with every improving one, you add another 9, so that it's 90 point whatever, and then 99 point whatever, and then 99.9 whatever, and then 99.99, and this is, the asymptotic um, um, evolution of this. And it seems as if, yes, it's one of these things that in fact, when you buy it, you actually think that you can almost believe it's going to improve as you own it, which is completely different than the way car companies have worked in the past. So you took the thing out of the dealer, thing was, oh, let's get to be obsolete as soon as possible so that we can sell you another one. In the sense that that's the beauty of software. The beauty of software is that you can both copy it, distribute it almost for free. And so if you improve it, the cost of distribution, both in time and money, is essentially zero. For you don't have to charge much, if anything. And in fact, if you scale that, then the small amount that you might charge times the large amount of folks who you can make it available to, that area ends up being really big. That's the magic here. And in some sense, you sort of wonder about the hardware piece of this thing. And yes, hardware, you have to swap it out. Okay. Hardware does get old, so that you do need new ones. However, if the software really improves, then in fact, you might make that improvement on the old hardware. Why do you need to both improve in hardware and software? Now, if the problem is such that the improvement is only it getting bigger and bigger. In other words, we have to do it with more brute force and more brute force and more brute force, which is the way we've been evolving in the AI area, whatever AI is. It's brute force added on to brute force. At some point, somebody entered with elegance. Now, if you add elegance to it, then in fact, it might be better even on a smaller footprint, a weaker processor. Now, that probably wouldn't make Jensen very happy at NVIDIA, because he's sort of benefiting from, as it becomes more brute force and more brute force, you need more Jensen Huang. If you put in elegance on top of elegance on top of elegance, ooh, we might be down to, I don't know, PCAT. I mean, what? At some point, maybe we go down the elegance line of improvement as opposed to the brute force line of improvement. Wouldn't that be interesting?
It would. Yeah, another. Yeah, you've worked closely with the trucking industry for many years in the past. So, what are your thoughts about the semi? That he's saying that it just makes an economic decision. These are business people that look at the economics, and their decision is going to be to buy the Tesla
I just
semi.
he said, well, of course, he basically said they aren't stupid. Okay, it's a business case. It's you add up the numbers.
And he wasn't even
And then
talking about the FSD
no,
aspect of it.
no,
He's talking
and
about the
this
electrification.
he's talking just about the electrification piece, and you begin to wonder when you listen to the AV folks. They don't seem to talk this way with respect to the automation. They talk about it with safety. And great, you're talking about it with safety. We all want safety. And of course, every CEO of every trucking company and every owner operator knows about safety too. They know about safety really well. We've discussed this for years here. They know this really well. Why? Because much of their safety is self insured. They pick up the front end of insurance. They go to Munich Re and so on for the back end for the really big stuff. But the front end, they pick up themselves for a large part. So every trucking company CEO knows what that front part is because that's taken right off the bottom line, right out of his or her pocket. They know that. And so if somebody came in and said, hey, we're really helping you on the safety piece, those folks would be selling stuff to these CEOs. It's only arithmetic. Okay. But somehow, I don't know, I haven't seen it in what has been published out there. They say it's going to be safer, but nobody's putting numbers out there. I haven't had to pitch. I'm not a trucking CEO, so I haven't heard it. You would think that somebody might have repeated it. And when it comes to the whole operation, nobody's to be repeating about what the implications are on the bottom line of Walmart distribution or JB Hunt or anybody or even Amazon. Maybe Zooks is keeping it quiet in there, and that's when they talk internally. Why they have to have, but when Andrew talked about it, or maybe I missed it. I'm really seeing Richard Bishop write about it. And what Elon was trying to say about the electrification, he said, it's just the bottom line implication. And what else I can do and how I can do it and what I don't else need to do and all the things up so that when I add up all the beans, the bigger account is in my pocket. It's a lemonade stand. Just as easy as that, I think. They made it very clear. And if in fact if those are the numbers, I guess he'll do just fine. Thank you.
Meanwhile, he's also hinting at several new vehicles, not one, not two, but three that he showed. But they kept them on their wraps. They didn't show anything other than an
Yeah, and
outline,
I
pretty
guess no,
much.
it's good, and and I don't know what people are saying. Yeah, I mean he's a heck of a salesman, and I guess what a CEO should be doing. I don't know if the SEC is going to be angry with him for whatever he was saying. I don't know. I just it just makes sense to me. Um, Whatever.
Well, everyone who watches or listens to the podcast or follows the newsletter knows the work that you've been doing on the moves effort and the progress that was made at the Smart Driving Car Summit, this last one especially, and the announcements that have been made there. But you took the opportunity in the newsletter to show how this could work for Brownsville Moves. Tell us about this.
Yeah, well, since I good off down to Brownsville again, Boca Chica, South Padre Island, to this the launch of Starship
Starship. Yeah.
version 4 or test 4. Around Brownsville and so on, and recognizing that in fact Elon, I think SpaceX has done an enormous amount of investment there, and the amount of construction and so on, and work and whatever, and people that they're bringing there is must be transforming that community. And then given what Elon was saying on the third on a few days ago, I decided to take a somewhat of a quick look as to what would an Elon type thing, what might it end up look like in a moves concept in Brownsville. Why not? I
Providing
mean,
people with rides, people who need rides.
okay, so hopefully you can see this, sharing my screen, a vision for 2030. Why not? Collaborators, Michael Senna, some of my students who have helped me. Basically, the moves concept, it's providing mobility from and to locations. Why not from and to everywhere? Well, this is just to 2030. And I don't know if there's anything that I sort of learned out of uh, what I observed from a distance in San Francisco is the whole concept of picking up somebody from anywhere and taking them to anywhere doesn't nothing but get you into trouble. And sure, someday we might really be able to do that. But for now, let's again use the elevator analogy, the horizontal elevator. You've got to go to the elevator bank to get the vehicle. They're either waiting for you with open doors or will be there soon. It's on the process, you hop in. And at some point, the door closes, it starts to move, and the thing moves and goes down, da da do da da da, and then get the floor you're going to. The door's open, you get out, and you walk to wherever you're going. Okay, why this way? I guess just to avoid the problems at San. Let's find a bunch of places where it's easy to over and wait for folks. That's very near where people are coming from, and let's to similar points where it's easy for them to get in and out and not block and not get other people upset at us because we're the new kid on the block, and the people then can get off and basically get easily to where they're actually going to their room. It's not up an elevator shaft, it's over a network of roads. And I think the interesting thing to see about the fundamental designs is that it's only some of the roads. It's not all the roads. Which some? Well, not the hardest one, unless you're a jerk and you just want to whatever. It's the easiest, it's the safest ones, it's the best ones. They don't need an app. They don't need to make a request. They just show up. The request is showing up. I mean, what happens when you use an elevator? You just show up. Has anybody ever gotten on an app and requested an elevator? So therefore, this is what one would look like. The interesting thing about this is, is how did we generate it? Okay, so how do we create such a thing? It's really actually pretty simple to be able to go in here. We just go to Wherefy Web 2 Princeton.edu, and let's do a create a new configuration, and basically ask to in this area find the best location of 20 kiosks. Assume Brownsville is actually a tall building, and we're going to put an elevator in there, and the building has floors. I'm going to be able to go from any floor to any floor in this building. Of course, it'll be horizontal and it'll be a network, but it'll build that for us. And it came up with these, initial set of 20 locations. It's chosen not to be out to the airport because there really aren't that the trip opportunities that are available directly with these kiosks. And we can zoom in on it, and this is where it sits. We can actually mouse over it and see that it ranks number 2 in opportunities to give rides that originate here. We've system, the AI, it's not really AI, but the AI has given it a name. Why? Because it's near East 17th Street, okay? And there are a total of 1,660 person trip opportunities of people that could walk to here within 5 minutes. Where do these opportunities exist? At these points. Of course, those that tend to live much closer would have a greater probability of actually being a customer. Those that live farther, well, it's a farther walk. Where this has been located is in the center of mass points. They each have different number of opportunities, and if we look at here, that we see that the half of the trips, and we only consider trips that are greater than a half a mile in length, that the average trip length for the median trip length is something like, well, I'll give it to is the median trip length. Where's 50? Ooh, 50 is 1.1 miles. And the 90th percentile is 90% of the trips originate from there, could be served by this at 1.8. So what happens is if we take a operational design domain and say we're going to serve the trips within that, the trip lengths are not all that large. But yet, the trips that are mile and a half, that's a 30-minute walk. That's substantial.
And it can be pretty hot in Brownsville.
And it can be pretty hot. Okay. But maybe people that end up using it are the people who live right close today of the opportunities of these avatars to want to travel to wherever they're going. Where they're going is shown in the red lines here. Okay. And where they go to, and the numbers is proportional to the width. So that if they all go, that's what it would look like. And we can zoom out and see where they do go. Over the roads that we've chosen to operate on. And there you can see it. Okay, some do go out here, some do go there, and this is how they would travel. Boom, 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 boom. It's not an elevator shaft. It's do. You can see it. And the total opportunity for Brownsville is for 25,000. This is what it looks like for the whole system. If you show up, the service concept that we're trying to create here is you show up at a kiosk, the elevator system starts moving you to where you're going less than 5 minutes. So that's a service time. And it doesn't take you all over heck to do it. Okay. And if somebody else is going to hop in the elevator with you, you're going to divert across town and then come back. There's a maximum security that's associated with anybody that, as long as the doors are open, other people can get on. And that's how, we sit there and we simulate it. And what we're going to take here in the simulation, when we're going to create one, let's take a look. Let's assume that with a small system, it's going to be so good and so inexpensive and so, just available that we think that we might be able to serve 10% of that market. We're going to have a fleet size of just 25 vehicles. We're going to say this is the call service. We're going to say that it's a random selection of these. In fact, in reality, it wouldn't be a random selection because we would probably market and serve some that are better served than others. The toughest distribution to serve is probably the random distributions. And is it that for now? You can disagree with me and we can discuss it later, but this is not the easiest. This is, I would think, the toughest. I have a service that we really want service to be within 5 minutes, 300 seconds. I'll be overly secured as I just 20%. And we're going to have vehicles that are, let's say, 5-person vehicles. And so now we can create a simulation for this. Is the 24-hour simulation. And we see as a summary here of how these 25 vehicles served it. Each vehicle ended up use on average 6.5 hours during the 24-hour day. The average vehicle occupancy is 1.0, which I'll claim is excellent. Why? Because this is miles of the lead person divided by, or person miles of the decision maker divided by total vehicle miles. Of those vehicle miles traveled, 1,000 miles of those empty repositionings. Each vehicle ends up serving an average of 100-person trips during this day. So if we zoom in and network as to what's happening here at 8:39:40, we have 14 vehicles moving with passengers. We have 5 vehicles moving empty. Of those 14 moving with passengers, and we look over here in terms of the color coding, we see that all these happen to have 1 passenger in them. And we don't see any ride sharing taking place in the view that we have right now. And in terms, if we look at one of these guys, for example, if we take a look at this guy, this is vehicle ID number 25. It's carrying 1 passenger and it's going to kiosk 13. And its trip duration is 8.4 minutes. And so we can mouse over each one of these guys. This is vehicle ID 1, representing kiosk 16 is it where it's going. And it's been on going, it's going to be going there for minutes. And it's repositioning a total 22.3 miles in terms of that positioning. So that gives us a view of each of these. What does it cost to do this? What would be the price implication? Well, let's pay $1,000, $100,000 for a vehicle. Maybe at the end of 4 years, it's $40,000 because we can it still has some value. That let's make it only $10,000. We can change that. Cost 3%, really kind of good. Communications charges, I don't know, 5 cents per vehicle. Wouldn't be more than that. Maintenance, customer loyalty, cost of customer acquisition, amount of churn, administration. What are we going to charge? Let's charge. Hey, if we can charge $5 for a trip, what the heck do? We make $2 million a year. Let's see what happens if we put a break-even fare of $3 on there. If we do $3, it's close. It's close. We still make $164,000 a year. We make no subsidy. It's $3 a ride. That system might grow in a few years to be 100 kiosks. Okay. Have the opportunity to serve, instead of 25,000 trips a day, have the opportunity to serve 10x that. One might look at a Brownsville MOVES, a vision for 2030, and say we started, now, and we start with community engagement and continue on essentially forever, because this communities. And at the first of the year, we start with a 12 months operational test with an attendant and driver on there, and run that test for a year on that 20 kiosk network, able to find exactly roads to use and not use, find the safe ones, collect all the data, stream it, let everybody know, not hide it, serve 100 to 150,000 person trips during that 12-month period. Really get experience with this. Does the system really work? Are the disengagements after this 12 months essentially zero? And to be able to sit there and gather the data during that period and show it to everybody, stream it, let them see it, learn, start expanding it. And maybe by 2030, get to what the continued operation was of the system that we looked at here. And maybe, first delivery, Brownsville MOVES. If you charge $3 on that one with 125, you're making $3 million a year. Break-even fare is probably back down to $250. If you're only looking to break even, if Tesla's running this and wanting to do it, as a service to Brownsville, they could do it. Or they could make a few bucks off of it. Or, charge even more, or have all sorts of other revenue opportunities because, in fact, they do this. That's the real case for driverless mobility in Brownsville.
That's terrific, Alan. And people should know that you can do this for any community around the country, maybe around the world.
Well, no, not
around the country for now.
No, I only built it, and in fact, it's circa 2010, not 2020. But these things are going to operate 2030, 2040. This show could do in a community that we, and I think to look at real demand and provide real rides really affordably that are really high quality. The interesting thing when you look at this is that the level of service during peaks is just fantastic. We already know that from elevators in tall buildings. We know that if we go to a building at off-peak hours. Elevators, no problem. Now, if everybody's checking out at the same time, or if everybody's checking in at the same time, or everybody's going to work at the same time, or coming from work at the same time, you got to wait for the Vader and you're crushed in there. But those times are small compared to the rest of the day. So the other influence that this thing would have is it would tend to smooth things out. Anytime that you can smooth things out naturally, talk to me here. This is the way I think this should be run, at least started. Not the way it was done so far. Sorry, but you know, your call, not mine. I don't control the vehicles. I'm just, whatever professor in the backwater bubble.
Making things happen.
Well, maybe I can
Couple of other quick
somebody.
stories, maybe from the newsletter, Alan.
Sure.
From The Verge, Waymo issues software and mapping recall after robotaxi crashes into a telephone pole. You read in here, the piece by Andrew Hawkins, and it centers on an unoccupied Waymo vehicle in Phoenix that was driving through an alley to a pickup location that was lined with telephone poles. And I think you kind of question the news value here.
Well, when people have these kinds of crashes, nobody hears about them. Okay? Because they know if they tell their insurance company their insurance rates are going to increase so much that they should just eat this one. Okay? Because otherwise it's going to come back and bite them. So nobody even hears these things. Now, of course, it happens to Waymo. You got to hear about it. But the explanations that Waymo came up with, I mean, I don't want to say they're as bad explanations that Cruise came up with when they had their tragic accident. That was an accident on their part. Somebody gets hurled in front of them out of nowhere. And then they try to be goody two shoes about it and move their vehicle out of the way. And oh my goodness, they're dragging somebody. What a nightmare. One has to ask, the vehicle made a choice to hit that pole. Probably. Otherwise, it wouldn't have hit the pole. I would hope that Waymo's system is better than what NHTSA is mandating for 2029, that in fact, these kinds of crashes don't exist anymore. Because there's an automated emergency braking system that says, especially when you're going slow, you're going to pick up every stationary object. Stationary objects, I mean, the easiest things to pick up anyway. Your approach speed is equal to your speed. You know it's a stationary object. And, you have time to collision the whole time in, every 30th of a second. You're not going to hit it. I mean, I would hope the control systems are that good. Doesn't take much AI to do that one. It must have been about to hit something else. Must have. I guess, or I don't know. This is a trolley problem type thing. They even say they're going to make it so that hitting a pole is not as minor as they have it now. That's the situation. You can either do this or do that. This one's minor than that one. Sounds like, really? If it is, why didn't you tell us that? To say, oh my goodness, it wasn't in our face. Kidding me? every moving object that you encounter is not in your map database, and I'm sure you demonstrate you know how to not hit moving objects. So to make sure you don't hit this one, I'd suggest, hey, call it moving. Your algorithm to do that works pretty well. Your algorithm to deal with stationary objects is the world around that. Maybe. And my goodness, there's that much reliance on what's in your map database with respect to stationary objects, so that if it's not there, you disregard it? I hope not. I know you're better than that. You had to have been better than that. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gotten to where you've gotten. So I don't know what the explanations are here. Okay. And then the final one on this. Why were you on this alley? If you watch the previous segment in which, my discussion about Brownsville moves, the whole objective is to find the set of ways to get from where you're picking up to where you're dropping off. That's the safest, easiest. I can't imagine that an alley with poles all over the place that are weirdly positioned would end up being, oh, we got to use this one because this is a really good one to use. What? You got to be kidding me. What was really going on here? But maybe I'm just too cynical and so on. You're really very good. And where was this person that you're going to pick up? Again, the idea is that picking up from anywhere to anywhere is just going to get you in trouble in the beginning. And if you don't get through the beginning, you certainly don't get to the end or even the middle. So you be really go pick up this gal out here because they just happen to be in my operational design domain. That's where you're starting. Good luck.
Alan, meanwhile, you mentioned Cruise. GM is investing $850 million into Cruise, which is now back on the streets of Houston with human safety drivers for now, following a 7-month absence there. So they're
well, of course,
gradually resuming.
Yeah, gradually resuming, and I think resuming appropriately. You have to resume with attendance on board. You've got to prove yourself all over again. As I suggested, the 2030 vision for Brownsville, you've got to do at least a year with attendance. You've got to acclimate the customer. You have to convince yourself that the thing works. And I would hope yourself is the toughest person, because you end up betting the ranch, not the other guy. You, Carl, bet the ranch. So you've got to be sure. And it's a shame. It's a shame for them in San Francisco. But now you have to start all over. But again, this is not going to be perfectly safe. And if one is selling this thing on the safety improvement, it's a shame, because with can deliver so much more value than just on safety. Wait a second. I mean, you can deliver much more value as opposed to trying to do it. These systems are really safe. It's irrelevant. That's not going to, I mean, really? We're a little fender bender. We're going to say, oh, no, you don't. Compared to the value that you can provide to people who if they could get a ride for $2.50, would improve their lives when they wanted to go to where they wanted to go, to the enormous, I don't know what the bus system in Brownsville serves. They might not even, I'm sure they must have one level of service by any of these systems has to be, they can't dream about serving 2,000 person trips a day, let alone 20,000, and serving them as well as they're being served. That's the value proposition of giving a ride. So, that's what it seems to be. And at some point, somebody, and it may take Elon because nobody else might be able to do it, or might have the gall to do it, or might have the ambition to do it. And to do it, why? Because it improves people's lives. And we know that, there's always, it's not everything is completely 100% positive. There's usually a cost associated with it. The issue is, what's the balance? And here, to provide the kind of mobility that it seems one could provide in a Brownsville, for what? How many vehicles? 125 vehicles? I mean, cut it out. What if you put 1,125 in there? What if you then, made this thing so that in fact you can go longer distance? Why not? It's even easier. There aren't telephone poles sitting out there right next to the whatever. But this is the way we've got to get started. We have the vision correct. We have to have the perspective correct. And we're back to, the book that Michael and I wrote, The Real Case for Driverless Mobility, as opposed to, I don't know what it is these other folks are chasing. And this is not to be better than Uber. Uber can do it for you. Please continue. A humanoid in there. I don't think, not anytime soon. I don't know, maybe, but just joke. I don't know. I think the other community that also exists for these is as it showed to the 2030 vehicle being, modified Cybertruck. The idea there is that it can be made handicap accessible really easily, I think. And for the handicapped persons, the number of places they're coming from and going to, and somewhat limited. So, again, nothing's perfect. If the objective is perfection, I'm done. This is the last of our podcasts. Can't do it. Not that good. I'm done. The idea is to do something really good with only minor whatevers. Maybe. Thank you.
And the book again is The Real Case for Driverless Mobility. There's a link also in the newsletter to the Brownsville
Yeah.
PowerPoint.
Yeah, you can look at Brownsville PowerPoint, provide some feedback, whatever, maybe somebody from Tesla will see it and just, I don't know, whatever.
Fingers crossed. Well, they can find more info and the newsletter at smartdrivingcar.com. Also, you can find us wherever you turn to for podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, Apple, Google, Amazon, wherever we are there. You can find my tech reports at textination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alain Kornhauser. Thanks for listening or watching. Tell your friends, and please continue to stay safe.